I thought I'd take it back to the old school booktube days and tell you about some of my favorite female authors. I know videos like this don't really get made anymore, but I'm like still finding my footing coming back to the booktube space and figuring out what I want to do, and so I thought I'd do something that's a little more comfortable for me and talk about some of my favorite female authors. This isn't really in any particular order, but I do have a favorite author out of this entire stack, so we're just gonna go with like the first books that I see. Now when I was making this list, I wanted to have a couple qualifiers in place. Number one being that I had to love their work. Number two being that I must have pre-ordered their books or would have bought a lot of their books really close to release date. And number three being that they are people I recommend. The first person on this list is Kylie Lee Baker, and this is her debut duology, The Keeper of Night. I really love these books. I've actually only read the first one. You can tell by these tabs. I have read it. I haven't read the second one yet, but I own it. I can't give you a reason for why I haven't read the second one other than I'm really bad at keeping up with sequels, and I've had this for like 2 years now. She also has a recent book that came out, The Bat Eater something. I don't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head. I haven't bought that one yet because I can't decide which cover I like better, but I think I want the UK the one that's not like the convenience store type one. It's the other one. It has the girl on the cover because I think it matches these. What I really love about this duology and what made me put Kylie Lee Baker on this list, even though I've only read one of her books, is the fact that her worlds are really rich. Sorry about that, my battery died and my camera cut out. As I was saying, well, you can definitely tell that Kylie Lee Baker was a debut author with this book. I think there's something about her writing style that makes it incredibly compelling and makes the stories just so interesting. This is a book that tackles her biracial identity because the main character is also biracial, but we're taking it a step further because the main character is half Grim Reaper and half Shinigami, which are two different kinds of death gods or death spirits, but they're from different cultures. And as she tries to track down her mother after being kicked out from her father's like group of Grim Reapers, there's a lot of talk about identity and culture and the idea of fitting in and finding your place in the world. I really like that Kylie Lee Baker isn't afraid to lean into main characters who are a little angrier, who demand their place in the world. This is a theme throughout these two books, and I know that's a theme throughout the Bat Eater book as well. They're a little dark, they can be a little bit gory. I wouldn't say that they're horror, and I wouldn't say that they're too gory, but I really, really like what these books do, and I really like Kylie Lee Baker's writing style, so I actually need to do a reread of this before I go into this because I don't remember enough of this to be reading this, but I love her book, and I will probably go order the Bat Eater book now because this is reminding me that I should go order that. Next up is an author that I don't know why I didn't put her on this list when I was planning this out, but I was looking at my shelves just now when my camera battery died and I had to go and charge the battery, and I was like, why is this author not on my list? And that is Judy I. Lin. You probably know her best from her Poison Steeped Magic series, but she also has this, I believe, is a stand-alone fantasy, and look at how pretty this is. Do you see that? That's so pretty. I think this is the Barnes & Noble edition. Look at how gorgeous this is. Or this could be the Waterstones edition. I don't know. I know it's signed by the author. Waterstone exclusive. Yes. It's so beautiful. Judy Lin's niche is books that feel like Chinese dramas, and if you're Chinese and you grew up with these dramas, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. These two books feel like something I would have watched when I was a kid, and I haven't read this one yet, but I know I'm gonna love it. Her writing style is incredibly beautiful. Culture plays a huge part in it, and what I love about these two books specifically is the fact that they have a glossary in the back because she does actually use Chinese in the books. I can't tell you how often I've picked up a book and wished there was a glossary, and this has a glossary. And I think it's so helpful not only to people who are not familiar with the language, but it's also really good for people who are learning the language because you get like the romanization, you get the pinyin, and you get the Chinese characters and like the meaning and the definition. And I think that's great. More books should do this. Judy Lin is also going to have her horror debut soon, or she already had it. I'm really excited to read that because I know it's inspired by bits of her childhood, and I'm really curious to see how she approaches the horror genre from being like a sort of fantastical author. These two are not mythologically based fantasy, these are like Chinese history inspired, like alternative history kind of thing, but this one is Chinese mythology inspired, and I can't wait to read this because I know I'm going to love it. You can tell by how much I tabbed these two books, specifically the first one, how much I enjoyed them. The fact that she's also been blurbed by Joan He and Ziran J. Zhao, I think that tells you more than you need to know about how good of an author she is. And she's someone that I will readily recommend to people who are looking for Chinese or Asian inspired fantasies because I think that her writing is much better than some of the other really, really popular books out there. And I just absolutely love her books. Also, the covers are stunning. Like, look at these covers. I would say you could guess this next author, but my camera angle is perfectly situated to cut off the entire shelf I have dedicated to their work, and that is Marie Lu. Marie Lu will forever be in my heart as one of my favorite authors because she is the first Asian author I read from who was like a bestseller who made me feel seen. Now I'm holding up these two specific copies, both of which are actually gifted by the same friend, both of which are also signed. This is a signed and personalized copy from my friend who got to meet Marie Lu at a signing at the end of last year, and it is signed and personalized to me, which I'm so grateful for. This is also my third copy of this book. And this is the Owl Crate Special Edition of The Kingdom of Back, which is signed, which my friend found for some reason in a thrift store. Like I said, I have an entire shelf dedicated to Marie Lu books because I love her work so much. I'm only missing 2 of her books, and that is her adult debut, which is Red City, I believe, and the sequel to Stars and Smoke. I own every single one of her other books. I'm not as big of a fan of her fantasy stuff, but I do really like that The Kingdom of Back is a standalone fantasy, and this follows the Mozart siblings. I think the writing is incredible. I'm not usually someone who loves lyrical writing, but this is so beautiful. It shows not only the research that she did, but I think if you were a kid who grew up being forced to play an instrument or learning an instrument, you will appreciate a lot of about the process of learning, and especially when you follow Mozart's older sister, Nana, you really get a sense of what she went through being the older sister to a prodigy, but also being a prodigy herself and never being recognized for that because she is a girl. And of course, Legends made its rounds for a really long time. This series is over 10 years old now, and that's because it holds up really well. It was a response to the political climate, and I think it's even more applicable now. When you look at what government is in a lot of different countries, not just the US, even though this is definitely a critique of the US, her books just hold up so well. The writing is incredible, the characters are really well done, the romances are really well done, the fight scenes. She writes some really good fight scenes, like, oh, reading this for the first time, the moment when Day and June meet, when he sees her and he's like, oh, I watch her square up and I know immediately that she is trained. Watching them fall in love, reading about that, oh, I fell in love with them. And that was the first time I ever had that kind of experience where I saw really what the other characters saw in each other, and I was part of that process to the point where I felt like I was also falling in love with Day at the same time June was. I also really love her Warcross duology, and I think that's a much better example of like VR gaming in books than the really popular Ready Player One. I think Warcross is the far superior duology when it comes to that because the writing is just better, it's not pretentious, it's very accessible, the explanations are great, and I also just find Ready Player One incredibly sexist. But Marie Lu is one of my auto-buy authors. Every time she releases a book, I pre-order it. I don't care. I know it's gonna grace my shelves. I actually need to move some things around my shelves because I'm almost out of space. But she's an author I will always recommend, and I kind of wish that we would like hype her up, especially her recent books. I feel like the hype around her books has kind of fallen off in recent years, but like she really deserves the hype. Next up we have an author that I got to meet, and I will insert a photo somewhere around here, and that is Jessie Kisutanto. I have only read Dial A for Aunties, but I own 4 of her books, and I actually bought 2 copies of this book. I gave one to my boyfriend before he was my boyfriend, and I got it signed to him. It says I'm not done with you yet, and he was like, that's a really ominous book to give someone. The way Jessie signs it, she writes your name at the top, and with this title it just says, to Charmaine, I'm not done with you yet. So giving this to my boyfriend before he was my boyfriend, it did say to insert his name, I'm not done with you yet, and he was like, that just sounds really ominous. But he's my boyfriend and we've been together for over a year, so I guess it worked. Sorry, my former colleagues and I are gossiping about something. Okay, as I was saying, I really enjoyed her book. While I've only read Dial A for Aunties, I read this during a readathon, and I really love this. There are not many books that make me laugh out loud, but this is one of them. I just love the cozy mystery style that she does. I don't like cozy mysteries typically, but the way that Jessie Kisutanto writes them is so funny. I got to interview her at my previous job, so like I know the kind of person she is. I follow her on social media, and she is just a really funny person. I think she's an example of an author who does the like funny, cutesy, cozy side of mysteries really well, while still making sure that the mystery has a really good twist that makes sense. Something that I find really difficult about reading a lot of cozy mysteries is that the mysteries don't really make a lot of sense, and the twists and the reveals are not that like well written. But Jessie Kisutanto is really good at writing them, and I actually really like these covers. I know that the other covers are also really pretty, but I kind of like the style. I didn't like them at first, but they've really grown on me over the past like year or so, and she is an auto-buy author for me. I do need to catch up and buying more of her books, but because I have them all in these like really cute little sizes, I want to find the matching editions, and so I need to go to my bookstore and hunt for them because like I like this size. These are just so cute. I like this a lot. She's really sweet, and she's one of those authors that like I hope she's just gonna become a staple. I hope when people think about cozy mysteries, they think about Jessie Kisutanto because she absolutely deserves that. The next author that I want to talk about is also another Asian author. I think you're probably seeing a trend that I'm really liking, promoting a lot of Asian authors. But this is also one of those authors that like, if you don't love her, are you okay? Because R.F. Kuang is amazing and everyone should love her book. Now I will say I have only read Yellowface, but this is on my priority TBR for the year, so like I will be getting to this. I really want to read all of her books. My boyfriend has already read this. I have pre-ordered Catabasis, and yes, it is Catabasis. I would call it Catabasis, but R.F. Kuang has said it is Catabasis. I don't need to have read all of her books to auto buy them. Like, I know she's gonna be an author I love. I also have the first 2 books in the Poppy War behind me. I don't have the 3rd book yet. I haven't read those books either. But I also really am tempted to get the new covers because they're so pretty, and she has said she likes the new covers more. R.F. Kuang is just so smart. She is so good at what she does. She's so well researched. She's so eloquent. She's so educated. How can you not love her? That's exactly why I love her. How can I not love her? Yellowface is one of my favorite books of 2023. It's one of my favorite books of all time. I recommend it to so many different people. I recommend R.F. Kuang to people all the time. She's just absolutely wonderful. Her writing is just so good too. I know that Yellowface is very different from the rest of her writing, but I know that I'll love whatever she puts out just because it's her. So of course she's one of my favorite authors, even though I've only read 1 book. But the fact that I've only read 1 book means that I just get to have a backlog of really amazing books that I get to go through now. And yes, I know that they will all make me cry, but I will be emotionally prepared for that one day. And I will have a lot of tissues ready. And that one day better come soon because I should read this soon. And next up is one that I think might surprise some people because I don't know how I feel about putting her on my favorites list, but she's also someone that I recommend so much. And I love her books even though it's not something that I would typically enjoy. And that's Simone St. James. I don't know why. This particular book is always super dusty even though it's in between 2 other books and none of the other books are like this. But the back of this one book is always just really dusty. I have read a bunch of Simone St. James books. I think I've read 4 or 5 of them. Murder Road is her most recent one and I haven't read this one yet. And they are paranormal-y mysteries. And I don't typically like that. I don't typically like anything paranormal. I don't typically like anything paranormal unless it's horror, but for some reason I really like the way that she puts it in her mysteries and they really work for me. Not all of them work, there's some that are a little weird. Like, I didn't really like the School of Broken Girls, or is it just called The Broken Girls? I really love Sundown Motel. That's my favorite Simone St. James books to date, and I don't own that one, but I read it from the library and I need to own it. That's my favorite book today, and I think it's mostly because it reminds me of the Teen Wolf episode where they're in that motel. I think it's called Motel California because Hotel California is a song, and this is a play on that, which is Motel California. I believe that's the logic behind it. I enjoyed the Book of Cold Cases. This was fun. Not my favorite of hers, but this was a lot of fun. And Murder Road, I haven't read yet, but I really want to because I think it's going to be really interesting. She's one of those authors where it's a little weird because I love her books in the sense that I have a lot of fun with them, and I will always order them when they're being released. They might not all be 5 stars, but I have a good time regardless, and because of that, I feel like she deserves a place on my favorite authors list because I do pre-order a lot of her books. I do enjoy them. I do actively recommend her as a beginner author for a lot of different people who are getting into mysteries, and especially if they want mysteries that are a little bit different from the norm. Like, I feel like it's okay that I don't love all of her books and only have given 5 stars to one of her books because I do pre-order her books all the time. So, like, I feel like that makes sense, right? Why am I justifying this decision to you and to myself? I do enjoy her books. I feel like it's weird to put someone on my favorites list if they're not someone that I, like, love all their books from, but I will regularly pre-order her books, which I feel like says something about her writing, right? And, like, how much I enjoy her book. And to wrap this up with my favorite author, if you know anything about me and if you have taken note of the very obvious clue behind my head, V.E. Schwab. You can see that shelf dedicated to V.E. Schwab's books. I have another shelf above it. It's also a V.E. Schwab shelf. I own so many copies of V.E. Schwab books. I may or may not have 5 copies of Addie LaRue. Even though it's not my favorite of her books and Vicious is, I do have 5 copies of her book. V.E. Schwab is an author I love for a lot of different reasons. Not only do I really love her stories and the way that she tells them, she's really inspiring to me as a writer, and she's the person whose advice I often find myself falling back on when I am struggling to write. Her advice is often what I go back to when I think of someone who is both honest and encouraging, and I think that is incredibly necessary. She has so many different kinds of worlds. She does a wide range of stories. She's done fantasy, and she's done it so well. She's also done, like, more, I guess you would call this urban fantasy, historical fantasy a little bit, more contemporary stuff. And then you have Vicious, which is like superheroes, X-Men style. There are so many things that I feel like V.E. Schwab does, and what I love about her books is that you can read them, and there are so many layers, and every time you reread her books, you will find something new and something different to really appreciate about the story. And I say this having recently reread Vengeful. I had not read it since it came out, and so, like, I wanted to do a reread, and I loved it so much more the second time around. I feel like me being 5 or 6 years older has really allowed me to sit with the story, and it led me to appreciate it in a very different way than I did when I was, like, 21. I cannot explain to you the love I have for V.E. Schwab because I just, like, you can see my shelf. She's behind me. It's there. People who know me for my love of V.E. Schwab. I've always gushed about V.E. Schwab. There are so many good things to say about her book, her writing, I really like how she puts herself out there and is really open about her writing style and how each book is really difficult for her and how she walks herself through the process and how it doesn't get any easier even though it kind of does. For someone who has so many best-selling books under her belt, she is incredibly humble as well, and she recognizes that she has had the privilege to do a lot of these things. She's worked really, really hard to get to where she is, and publishing the number of books that she has in a year, like last year I think was the first year that she did not have a single book come out since she started publishing. She's had at least one book come out since she started, and the way she works so hard, it's gotten her to where she is and it's gotten her the recognition that she deserved. Also, the covers of her books are gorgeous. I have pre-ordered her newest book, which is Burial Bones in the Midnight Soil. That is the only cover of her books that I've been like, ooh, what happened here? And that's the consensus from every single person that I've seen online. What happened? Like, I have not seen an alternative cover for that yet. I've not seen the UK cover for that yet. We have gotten, like, these gorgeous covers. You can see back there my white UK editions of Vicious and Vengeful. We've gotten such beautiful covers. I don't know what happened with Burial Bones in the Midnight Soil. What happened with that book? Like, why does it not match the aesthetic of the other book? V. Schwab is just one of those authors that, like, her books will always have such a special place in my heart. I love most of her books. I still have so many that I need to read, but I'm really happy about the fact that I have an entire backlog of books to read because that means I get to enjoy so many different things for the first time, and I know I will love all of it. Like, I might not love them all to the same degree. For example, Gallant is my least favorite of her book, but they all hold a special place in my heart because she's an author that, like, I feel like has done so many amazing things. I love the type of stories that she tells. I love the way she tells them, and I love how contemplative they are. She's just one of those authors that, like, I feel like as she releases more books and as I get older, eventually I will have an entire bookshelf that is just her books and all my different special editions, and I'm totally okay with that. I will very happily put my money towards supporting an author that I love, that I think has done so many good things, and who I think has really earned her spot as being one of the most popular authors right now. I'm trying to hold up the books that I have in front of me, but I think I am more likely to take myself out or the camera out, and the camera is more expensive than I am. So you know what, we're not going to hold up any of the books. But that is my list of my favorite female authors. It is a very simple list, but I really just love all of these authors and what they do. Their books have made me so happy. I've enjoyed them. And I think that's all you can really ask for in favorite authors. Someone who makes you think, someone who makes you enjoy the reading process, someone whose books you look forward to every time they come out with a new one. And I think that is just the hallmark of what makes someone a favorite author. Of course, if you want me to pick like my favorites of these favorite authors, it's going to be V. Schwab, R.F. Kuang, and Marie Lu. Like, these three authors just... They're in a league of their own, I think. At least to me. But I do love all of these authors, and I'm glad I got to share that with you, doing a little more of an old school style video. I know that they're pretty popular authors, but that doesn't mean they can't also be my favorite, and that doesn't mean they also aren't good. I'm rambling, and I need to end this video so I can go and edit it because I'm filming this like the day before it needs to go up. But please let me know who some of your favorite female authors are in the comments down below. I would love to check them out. I'm always looking for more female authors to support. And in fact, most of the authors on my shelves are women. I very rarely read from men. In fact, I read so rarely from men that my dad was surprised once when I gave him a book and he was like, oh, it's a male author. And I was like, yeah, one of the rare men who like made it onto my bookshelf. Happy International Women's Day to all my ladies out there. I hope someone brought you flowers. I hope someone did something really nice for you. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!